welcome to Open Source episode 36. And I'm delighted, as usual, to be joined by my two co-founders, Mark Simpson, give us a wave, and Rory Onsworth's famous kiss. Thank you. So as you've noticed, guys, the last few weeks, we've been experimenting with different types of content. Today, we're going to go back to the traditional versions about what we found was exciting in the news and what made us wonder. So to kick it off, Mark, do you want to tell us what is it in the news that you found interesting this week?
Yeah, so the interesting one for me was, and this is the courtroom in Iowa. So Iowa in the United States introduced a bill to try and level the playing field on blockchain and smart contracts. I thought Rory would find this quite interesting. So if the bill's passed, it's going to recognize cases of distributed ledger technology and smart contracts in law itself. Okay, so again, it's got, it amends the definition of contract to include those secured using DLT, and it further includes the term around smart contracts. And as such, no contract will be denied legal effect simply because it's a smart contract. An electronic record and electronic signature would also include those secured using DLT. Now, I like this because I'll have to change my old joke about smart contracts being neither smart nor contracts. But if Iowa gets this passed, it will be. And what was interesting is the state had previously introduced some legislation exempting virtual currencies from certain security and money transmission regulations as well. And if we couple that with Rhode Island, they've been considering how they're going to boost economy with a blockchain friendly legislation. And it's about how they welcome the environment for new fintech firms. Are we going to see a state level rush to become the most kind of DLT friendly in the US? I find it, as I said, when lawmakers start changing things, we're moving again into the mainstream. So I find that really interesting.
But to be fair, I mean, we've had this kind of race even 2 years ago. It was Vermont, I think Rhode Island also, and Wyoming, if memory serves me right. But just coming back on the part about smart contract, it'll be interesting to know the details, because I think one of the key stipulations should be that you can read the terms of the contract in a human language version, that is accessible to all, not just in programming language.
That's right. Well, the good news is I'll put a link to the Senate Bill 303 up.
Excellent.
Through it, and I'll even put a link to the Rhode Island bill as well, so it's got the full transcript, so you can see that. Yeah.
But I think it's just dotting the I's and crossing the T's, that one, in the sense that what they're doing is saying just because it takes electronic form, the form of a smart contract, doesn't necessarily disqualify it, which is pretty reductive, because so many contracts concluded already by email or whatever, right?
Yeah. But I guess
formal ways. So
it gives it more legitimacy, I guess, and that's what I see as the move. And particularly, again, are we in the middle of another crypto boom? We've seen that with Tesla's $1.5 billion hedging this week. And I just think the more we'll see I describe it as normalized behavior like this, the more we'll move away from DLT just being crypto or being something bad or something anachronistic, or around that. It's actually becoming more mainstream. But equally, yeah, I mean, you're the legal expert, Rory, and again, if it is dotting an I, that sounds cool to me as well.
Yeah, no, from my perspective, it's more a confirmation, and as you say, setting of the tone, and much less around, in practice, you end up in court, and the court would find that it's not a legally viable contract because it's done by smart contract. So, and it still won't make a number of smart contracts into contracts, right? It doesn't work the other way around.
No.
As you said yourself, most smart contracts are not actually contracts.
No. And the smart bit we still haven't solved either. So
yeah, just saying, if it's a contract taking smart contract form, we won't disqualify it just because it's a smart contract, but it doesn't change the overriding definition of a smart contract, I don't think.
Right. Rory, how about you tell us, what is it in news that you found interesting this week?
Interesting or liked?
both liked?
Whatever. I like the fact that my kids are back, but I'm slightly worried they're going to appear in my back. So please excuse me. My like of the week is a podcast that Mark recommended called Tales of Silicon Valley. It's the work of the Sunday Times tech correspondent, Mark, I think.
Yeah.
And it looks at Silicon Valley as, culture, I guess, and it focuses on data usage, which for me, is the biggest story of our time. And my favorite episode was around whether big tech companies could get us out of lockdown, which is a great question now, right? But it nicely balanced in the episode. It nicely balanced the practical, positive uses to which these huge data stores can be put, and the collateral damage to other areas like privacy and so forth. So it's a brilliant illustration each time of why we all need to be really careful around data hygiene and why GDPR and such protections are absolutely essential. So Mark, thank you very much for that recommendation. It's kind of retweet.
Yep, Danny in the Valley, he's good.
Very good.
It's interesting because, there's this whole controversy with regards to WhatsApp and how people have been fleeing WhatsApp to Telegram and Signal, or is it Sigma? I forgot what they call Signal, I think. But yeah, so it's still something which unfortunately we have to live with and be careful. Mark, what is it in the news that made you wonder?
So I read a report today from BearingPoint, and it was their 2021 study of UK digital leaders. So it was an interesting report because they assessed the digital maturity, and this time they did it of 79 leading companies across 7 different industries, which included insurance. And surprise, surprise, insurance didn't fail particularly well. So retail non-food was top with 3.25 as an index out of 5. Retail fashion, retail food, then banking, the thing we often compare to, at 3.07, and insurance sat behind telcos at 2.64, and only energy lagging behind. So what was interesting is when they compared it to banking, it fell behind on the dimensions of how insurance markets, how it engages with consumers. What I found interesting, and again in insurance, the top performer from this study was Admiral. So you've got Admiral, Aviva, AXA, Direct Line, and LV. So a lot of the GI stuff. And insurance performed pretty high in e-commerce, and that focus on the digital experience. But what it found me, again, I found interesting, and they focused on things like, well, where it falls behind with insurers is on mobile apps. So there isn't really a meaningful app. There's some stuff around how you process claims, and some apps around telematics where you get the driver score. I've had that with my daughter, and even customer empowerment. And they're saying it's not completely digital. Even changing your details isn't so easy. And most of the apps I've seen have just skinned the policy admin system that sat behind it. But aside from all that, what I found interesting around even this report was it was still largely, but not exclusively focused around a product focus. That thing that I get on my soapbox on regularly. And I feel that there's this opportunity for greater intimacy and relationship when we move beyond transactions and journey experiences. Lots of people with the apps that really work, they've got a great deal of intimacy because people are using the app more than, and at this point everybody says, well, hang on, we're in the protect and prevent. But again, when we move into the enhanced space, we get more intimacy. And what's interesting is, 2020 out in necessity, it did a lot and changed a lot for brands. So lots of customers flocked to digital channels. It was the way of moving through. And they realized that they can change those relationships with even a few clicks. And it's got me thinking about, so what do we learn from other industries? I read a great quote that said, 2021, live by the fan or die by the mob. And that's what side of your customers on, right? So Delta was a good example. So even in the pandemic early on, and when travel was hit hard, they doubled down on their social media to try and get feedback and get coverage for increased demands. And customers started to push back against cancellation fees, for example. So Delta just removed the fees entirely. They issued credits that they wouldn't have done normally. And they started to increase their interaction and communication, a great deal more of intimacy. And they got more feedback from customers voicing more concern that they were able to respond to. And there's a lot of talk about churn in lots of industries. Insurance has almost just accepted churn as just a frictional cost of doing business. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see how this live by the fan or die by the mob, how that impacts churn, and will that actually be a death blow for some insurers that just don't get to intimacy because they're still at trust.
For certain presidents in die by the mob. But just one quick point about regarding what you're saying. For me, it's really about, the emotional intimacy, because when I was working at Beasley, they wanted to, design a new product, that was about insuring people's watches, high value watches. And they kept thinking about, well, we'll just replace the watch. And then I did a lot of intensive, qualitative research, one-on-one interviews with a lot of people. And I realized, yes, they wanted to protect the value of the watch. And if it gets stolen or, they get a new one. But the bulk of the answers it was not about the watch. It was about the story related to the watch. I got that watch through my first, for my wedding, with my first child, the birth of my first child, through my first job. You can replace it. It won't have that story associated to it.
Yeah.
So, and that's what I'm thinking is that insurers really need to think about, the user experience. What is this asset they're protecting, or this personal item? What does that mean? And how can you protect it in a manner that is different to just replacing it or paying for it?
That's why I like Safe Side. Michael, our community member, Michael Klein's his new life insurance concept so much, because it talks about ensuring what's valuable to people, including their sort of digital footprint, and making sure that upon demise, the family gets access to everything. So some money to support, but not just that, like that the person's traces in this world and all that kind of thing. I really like that concept of trying to preserve, return to the owners that memory part, not just changing it into cash, right?
Yes, exactly.
Well, I love that as well, guys, because you both speak to my 6 things that if I'm inventing insurance again tomorrow, I want it to protect and enhance my people, my stuff, my time, my emotion, my ability to function, and my reputation.
Yeah, indeed, it all interlinks.
Yeah.
Rory, tell us, what is it in the news that made you wonder?
I've got a number of things, but I think we should probably leave it there. No, I think we've got a very good story there around the value of simplification, the value of ensuring what's valuable to people, and in your case, Wally, this piece about asking questions and working out what the people would like. The chance to reinvent insurance, and
yes.
I think I'll stay with that. I was going to go on and on about these business interruption claims in the UK and the variety of wordings they found, but I think that we can keep that for another day.
Sounds good. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much, for sharing your insights and delightful points of conversation as usual. And you, our dear audience, we are more than welcome, to greet you and to participate in this conversation. Challenge us, tell us, we're talking crap or if we're making sense from time to time. We'd love for you to join in. So, but for now, we'll be seeing you next week. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye now.